In today's episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast, we have a special crossover episode with the Pistons Pulse, Bryce Simon, and Omari Sankofa II. We'll discuss the Pistons playoff series and the big takeaways from that in part one, and in part two, we will talk about the upcoming offseason. Get ready for all that in today's episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Let's go.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Per usual, I am your host, Ku Khahil. You can find me over on Twitter at Ku Khahil. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to us on. There's another great way to support the podcast, and today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. You guys know it. Check out the description down below for the SUBSTACK where we have the playoff player reviews coming to you guys in written and film breakdown fashion. Also subscribe over at the Playback Room, which will also be in the description down below. But let's go ahead and get into today's episode. We'll go ahead and throw it over there. We have a crossover with Bryce Simon and Omari Sankofa II, the host of the Pistons Pulse Podcast. It's a fun episode. We broke it down to part one and part two. Part one, we'll be discussing the playoff series, the biggest takeaways, our evaluations of that. And then in part two, we'll discuss the offseason, what the Pistons should do. What does running it back look like? Should they make a trade? And would you extend Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren? A bunch of that conversation is coming in this part one, part two episodes with these guys. I hope you guys really enjoy it. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Now listen to our crossover with the Pistons Pulse. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Pistons Podcast. We are joined by Bryce Simon. You can find him over on Twitter at Motor City Hoops. You can also find Omari Sankofa II, who's also joining us at Omari Sankofa on Twitter. They are also the hosts, obviously, of the Pistons Pulse Podcast. We have a cool, dope crossover coming to you guys. We do these every now and then, and because we know these last so long, and we oftentimes go way over, what we're going to do is this will be a part one and part two. Part one, we'll be discussing the playoff series and how we feel about how the team played, some takeaways, etc. And then in part two, we will talk about the offseason, maybe potential moves, potential trades, what should they do. So just stay tuned for all that. You guys will have a part one and part two. But Bryce, Omari, how are you guys feeling? You guys ready to get started?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah,
Omari,
let's go,
Omari, you haven't even got to talk about the series too much yet, even over on our podcast. So this will be good for you. I'm interested to hear Omari's takeaways, Ku.
I'm also interested to hear my takeaways because I haven't been able to talk about it. As you guys said, we kind of went from, because of the way we recorded, I feel like I probably talked after game 3 or 4. And then, yeah, like Bryce said, we just went straight from that to Trajan. So, yeah, I may have some takes I want to get off. So this is going to be fun. I'm ready.
All right, so we'll let Omari go first then, since he has some takes he wants to get going. So,
Bryce could go. Like, I might need to marinate on him for a little bit, and, make sure
the playoffs have been over for a week for the Pistons. They've been marinating long enough. You got it.
All right, cool.
All right, so the Pistons lost 4-2 to the New York Knicks. They did end their 17-year playoff drought. Obviously, everyone knows this. They got 2 wins, weren't able to get a home playoff win, but they had each game was extremely close. Every single game was competitive. They had a chance to win the series. I think a lot of players probably walk away feeling like we had a chance to win the series. We've talked about it a lot on the podcast already, but Omari, let's start with you. What are your feelings now walking away from the series? It's had some time, like Bryce mentioned, we've had some time now to sit back and kind of, let it marinate and think about it. What are you feeling about this playoff series now that it's been like a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks since the season ended?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, my takeaway is just the way I felt about this team essentially since the end of December, sort of when this run began, which is that they've consistently punched a little bit above their weight class. Well, at first, a lot of bit above, but, as it became more normalized, I feel like they still continued to stay afloat, weather some punches. I know they kind of lost some games toward the end when they had some guys injured, but like 6 games against like a good Knicks team that just went up 2-0 against Boston. And the last 4 games, like razor sharp margins. They had one game that the league admitted like was a missed call, and THJ just needed to make 2 of 3 free throws to win it, or 1 of 3 to send it into OT. Like the series literally ended on a game winner, and Brunson's been super clutch, and like he made a good play, but if you're the Pistons, you come away from that like we could have won that. And, I think, again, it just continues to start in December where, this team at some point it just clicked and they were just ready. And they've pretty much lived up to whatever potential you thought they could have, like even as expectations rose throughout. And then the last thing on that, too, is that for them to do that without Isaiah Stewart, who before the series started, we probably would have all agreed was either the second or third most important Piston. And then obviously no Jaden Ivey, which, of course, they figured things out before he got hurt anyway. But still, like you see that this team, not only have they arrived, there's still room for them to get better. So just nothing but positive feelings, really.
Bryce, what are you thinking?
Yeah, Omari kind of touched on it in terms of what we thought all season long and then what would that look like in the playoffs. And I'm sure we'll get into the individual players and stuff like that. From the team as a whole, one of the biggest things I would put in my Substack all year was this team responds, right? Like we had gotten so used to over the last 4 years that 1 loss meant 2 and 2 losses meant 5 and 5 losses might mean 28 in a row, right? Well, this year it was like, I always kind of got nervous when they'd lose a game or lose a quarter or have a bad stretch. And then they always responded. They did it in the playoffs, like the biggest stage this team has been on in how many ever years. And they fought back. They got screwed in game 4, right? We all know it. They followed that up by doing what? Going into Madison Square Garden and winning a second time and extending the series. So that was my biggest overarching takeaway was they were able to respond in the same way they did all regular season.
No, yeah, that's definitely a really good point. I mean, there was multiple times where I came on the podcast during the season. I know we're talking about the playoffs, but during the season where they would lose 1-2 games in a row, and I'd come on the podcast and be like, okay, let's hope this doesn't turn into a 5-gamer, and then they'd rip off 3 in a row and 4 in a row. This team definitely was very resilient and answered the call multiple times. But like you mentioned, Bryce, we definitely are going to get into individual performances and start getting into the weeds of this. Let's start with Cade. And I don't know about you guys, but I'd say I've seen mostly positive, but I've seen some mixed thoughts on how Cade played in the playoffs. Whichever one of you guys want to start first, we'll probably spend a lot of time on this one. What did you guys come away thinking about Cade's performance? Most positive, negative, whatever it is, whatever way you guys want to take it. How did you guys feel about Cade's performance in the playoffs?
Go ahead, O2.
Yeah, I would say he met expectations. I don't know if he exceeded them by a wild amount, but at the same time, he certainly wasn't bad. He was productive. You look at what he averaged, and yeah, the field goal percentage goes down a little bit. I think that's pretty normal for the playoffs in general, especially when you're the main engine of your offense. But obviously he had some masterclass performances mixed in there as well. And you think about that third quarter, I believe in game 4, that where he just completely took over on both sides, and games like that just showed, he could absolutely dominate a game in the way that few guys can, and that's really what you want to see. The only negative for me, and we kind of talked about it last week on the pod with Sean Bryce, is just the conditioning aspect where you can sustain it for longer, and that's always just been a thing with Cade where, he will have a hot quarter, but he wears down at the ends of games a little bit. And he's carrying a big load as well. He's being asked to do a lot. So I think some of that's also a byproduct of that. But if you just get that wind up just 20% and you can sustain that for longer, you just think of, just what that would look like in any future playoff series. So I would say he met expectations. I don't know if he rose to the level of Giannis in the finals when they won a few years ago, but he certainly passed the superstar test and showed what he can do.
Bryce, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm with Omari as well. I was thinking about this today, when we talk about the offseason, I'm sure at a certain point we'll talk about their cap situation, and I kept going, man, if this man doesn't make All-NBA, I'm going to lose my mind. And I usually don't get too worked up about awards things, but Cade Cunningham better be All-NBA. I have him second team All-NBA. And, I had somebody ask me one time, where would Cade be in point guards in the NBA and in the playoffs and stuff? And I had him a little bit lower, and they're like, oh, you're lower on Cade than me. And I said, no, I'm not. I just want to see Cade do it in the playoffs. I know what I believe Cade Cunningham is, but he's never played in the playoffs. He went out in the playoffs and he played really well, especially when you consider there were a couple things, right? He averaged 25, 8, and almost 9 with over 3 stocks per game. And that's while shooting like awful from three, Ku. Like, I don't think there's any way around it. He was 18% on a little under 5 attempts and turning it over 5 times a game. The thing is, I really believe one of those things in particular he can improve on, and part of it would be what O2 said with his conditioning. My question, can I throw a question at you with Cade?
Yeah.
Which are you more, I don't know if the word is concerned, or which would you rather him come back next year in the playoffs and improve? Would it be the 3-point percentage or the turnovers? Like, if those are the two quote unquote flaws offensively, which one do you think is more important for him to grow with?
Everyone in my house always has something going on. I call this the busy season. I don't have a lot of time to go grocery shopping or to cook healthy meals at home. That's why I use Hungry Root. Hungry Root is like having your own personal shopper and nutritionist wrapped into one. They take care of grocery shopping and meal planning, offering personalized recommendations based on your taste and health goals. With their high-quality, nutritious food, you can stick to your gut-friendly, high-protein diet without spending hours planning. The meals come together in 15 minutes or less, giving you more time for workouts, watching games, going and playing games, family, hobbies, whatever it is. Take advantage of this exclusive deal today. Get 40% off your first box, plus a free item in every box for life. Go to hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA and use code LockedOnNBA. That's hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA. Use code LockedOnNBA for 40% off and a lifetime free item with Hungry Root. Then I got to tell you guys about another one of our sponsors, Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all the money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place. So you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year with Monarch Money. I think the 3-point shooting is more important.
Yeah,
especially with how the Knicks started to guard them. We went into this on my Substack. I did a film breakdown or just a player review on them, and we went through the film and a deep breakdown. If you guys haven't checked it out already, go click the description down below. You guys can check that out. But like me and Matt talked about this a little bit as well. Like the hedge gap 3 was open all series for him.
Yep.
And he started to figure it out a little bit in game 4. He hit one big time hedge gap 3 in the fourth quarter of game 4, or game 5, I mean, when he had 13 in the fourth and helped them extend the series. And then in game 6, I went through each one of his 3-point attempts. 5 of his 8 misses were all in the hedge gap. And like, they're good reads. Those are good shots. Those are shots you want him to get, and he just couldn't hit any of them. I feel like if he's able to hit those threes, the Pistons maybe win this series. And Omari, I think you bring up a great point. I think conditioning has a large part to do with it. Especially just not even just like you mentioned at the end of the year, but kind of like throughout games. Like we've seen them during the regular season, like start off hot and then kind of gas out as the game gets on. So I do think conditioning would be huge for him. To back up something you said, Bryce, I want to bring up this screenshot that this is not the greatest like positioning for it, but this is a screenshot I put in my Cade Cunningham breakdown, and it's going through like the pace of these playoffs compared to the last playoffs. And pace usually falls down a little bit in the playoffs, but even this year, if you look, this is the largest it's dropped down since I think like 1999. The pace has been a crazy drop off. The physicality in these playoffs have been through the roof. So you've seen less offense. You've seen, let me fix this real quick. Sorry, wrong one. You've seen the offense fall off just a little bit. Especially from guys like Jokic, SGA, like these guys are struggling to score. And despite that, Cade was able to go out in his first playoff series and drop 25, 8, 1.8 steals, 1.3 blocks with the team, especially when you consider the context, I feel like, where he doesn't have another shot creator on his team. He doesn't have another initiator on his team. Everything is ran through him. The defense's game plan is all about him. And he was able to go out there. I do believe in the playoffs there is a little bit of productivity over efficiency. It's not that neither, like one matters more than the other, I guess, but I guess I am kind of saying it. I kind of feel like productivity matters a little bit more in the playoffs than efficiency. You don't want to just be terribly inefficient, but being able to put up numbers and impact the game outside of this efficiency is big time. And I feel like where Cade kind of showed Pistons fans moving forward that what's different about the Pistons and different about him is that you guys, the Pistons fan base, they have a player who is able to impact the game on both ends of the floor, and most teams don't have that. Their franchise player, a lot of them, can only impact really heavily on the offensive end of the floor. Cade was, I thought, really good defensively, especially as a weak side rim protector for the Detroit Pistons in this series, and then also obviously carried everything offensively. So when you consider the context, first playoff series, the physicality, the Pistons not being a good half-court offense to begin with and having it slow down like that, I thought overall I don't see how anyone cannot be impressed by Cade's first ever playoff series.
I know we don't want to talk the offseason just yet, but just I think another takeaway, Cade specifically, you touched on it, Ku, was because he is so versatile, because he is so well-rounded, it does make roster building a little bit easier, right? I mean, the only thing you can say about Cade that quote-unquote limits your roster building is you don't want to take the ball out of his hands too much. Everything else is in play. I think he can play with any type of big. He is at least neutral, if not a positive, on the defensive end. So you don't have to, hey, we have to go get wing defenders because Cade can't guard anybody. All of those things don't matter as much as maybe some other guys do. Now, again, the three-point shooting has to grow. The conditioning, the turnovers would still be nice if he could bring them down. But, we talked about this. I don't even blame him for the conditioning because he's never felt it before. He doesn't know what it feels like, and that's the best thing about them making the playoffs is now Cade can go into an offseason with Ashton or whoever and say, okay, now I know how I felt in those moments. Now I know where I have to take my level of training to be ready for it next year and the year after and the year after.
No, for sure. And that's why, I mentioned just his workload, but he's being asked to do a lot on both ends. Like you mentioned the shot blocking, which went way up. Like he's doing a lot. And now, he has a better idea of there's this second level of conditioning you need on top of what's already demanded of you during the regular season. And and that gives you more direction, especially as he gets further out from his surgery and, he has more trust in his body. And I feel like this season you could tell that it was really behind him where last season he was still kind of working his way back. So, I'm definitely curious to see how he's able to attack that this offseason and come back.
So let me ask you guys this. I want each one of us to pick one player. Or maybe we might have the same player. Outside of Cade now, moving past Cade, is there another player that you have some strong thoughts about or a big takeaway or that you really want to talk about from the playoff series? Do either one of you guys have one player outside Cade that kind of comes to mind?
Well, I want to talk about Ausar. I don't know that I have a strong take. I just think he's probably the one that's most interesting to talk about in terms of his minutes, what it looked like, areas of growth, his importance with the roster, etc.
Omari, you on board with Ausar?
I'm on board for Ausar. I was also going to say Jalen Duren, who I thought offensively they began to lean on him more and more, and he delivered for the most part. But both of those guys were X factors.
We can go with Ausar. Bryce, you want to start off with what you were thinking? I just recorded last episode. We did Ausar's player playoff review, so you can go ahead and lead this one off.
Yeah, I mean, I think he showed defensively what he's capable of. I don't know that I'm super worried about the foul trouble. I think it's one of those things in the NBA, whether people like it or not, there's this certain rite of passage or whatever, where I think eventually he stops getting called for a lot of those, right? When you get I always think guys that get reputation as charge takers get more 50-50 block charge calls because they're guys that take charges. And so I think some of them he has to learn, but some of it I think just aren't going to get called on him. And I do think it changed his mentality. I thought you could see his aggressiveness, and for a young player, that's going to happen. But I thought you saw his defensive impact and what he was capable of. And then offensively, we kind of knew this. My biggest issue with him and Jalen Duren isn't that they're both non-shooters. It's that they occupy the same space off the ball. They just have to learn to not cut to the same area or not both want to be in the dunker spot. But when Detroit ran traditional ball screen stuff, we saw a lot of the stuff we saw in the regular season. Why this series was interesting was you wanted to attack somebody with non-traditional ball screen actions, right? You wanted to attack Jalen Brunson at the point of attack, and now that kind of changed things because Duren and Ausar both weren't in the initial action. So I think that messed up some things a little bit offensively. My thing with Ausar is I don't know that it reinforced what I thought about him in all of the positive ways and the area of growth ways. And I don't think there's anything I'm worried about or like negative about that. It was good to see that he was still a very extremely productive player in a playoff setting, even when the court shrinks and the game slows down and all of that.
Yeah, I just wanted to say this real quickly. I'll let you go, Omari. Bryce, did you feel like as the series went on that, cause I completely agree with you about them occupying the same space, and it's more about how they position themselves. When you have two non-shooters like Ausar and Duren, you're spacing, and not just on the 3-point. I'm talking about like spacing in the whole half court, stretching to the baseline. You have to be putting these players, and these players need to be in the right spots. It has to be precise, or you are really going to get clunked up in the half court. Did you feel like they got better with that as the series went on, about where a player needs to be at the what time, in what setting, et cetera, et cetera?
I don't know that I saw a bunch of growth because honestly, Ku was kind of an issue all year in some of those type of situations. When they looked their best was when Detroit went traditional ball screen, New York put 2 on the ball, JD caught it in the short roll, and then Ausar was occupying the dunker. To your point, some of the issues are like Tobias Harris also cutting. And it's like, Tobias, what are you doing, my guy? Stand over there and be a floor spacer. We already have 2 of these guys in the lane. So I believe it can work. It's just, to your point, it has to be very precise. It has to be very calculated and deliberate in terms of who's where, when do they cut, how do they cut. The other thing is like, they got to trust Ausar to just go catch lobs sometimes. I thought there were multiple times, even in transition, where Ausar was like, it's Jalen Brunson. Just throw it up there, and he's going to jump over him because Jalen Brunson's not going to be able to attack that pass. So there was some of that. And I will admit, I thought in general JB had a really good year. The playoffs, I thought he was fine. I even had in my Substack notes, like there was times where I'm like, at least go some offense defense with Ausar, right? In the fourth quarter. If you don't trust him offensively, okay, that's a whole different discussion. But here's a chance to get him in for a defensive possession. Then you can sub him out at the next stoppage, whatever. I thought JB missed some opportunities, and I thought it did hurt Detroit defensively, letting Brunson get in a flow at times.
The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have way more ways than ever to play smart and win big. What would it look like to combine live prop bets mid-game based on how the action unfolds? You can do that over on FanDuel. How could $200 bonus in bets add to the excitement if your first $5 bet wins? That's something else that could happen for you over at FanDuel. It makes all of this a lot more exciting with FanDuel. All these questions, all these things you can do special to FanDuel. It's why I love using it and why I've been using FanDuel for a few years now. Ever since it became legal in Michigan, I have not turned back since. I even used it tonight for FanDuel, over on FanDuel for the NBA draft lottery tonight, where I put 20 on the Charlotte Hornets at plus 550 to win the lottery. So we'll see if that happens. But if you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Yeah, and I mentioned this in the last podcast. I don't know. I'm not putting it all on JB. I don't know if you want to put it on JB or the players about maybe they know where they're supposed to be and they're just not there, and the IQ, like, who knows who it's on. But I felt like the positioning at times could have been better early on in the series. And to back up your point, there was one play in like game 4, I think, where JD, it was a shot clock violation. Ausar got the ball underneath the basket, got a shot clock violation because he dribbled the ball back out. I thought JD could have threw it up to him and let him just finish at the rim. The very next possession, he throws it up to Ausar in the exact same situation, does like a my bad, like he knew the last possession, should have just thrown it up. But Omari, go ahead. Or Bryce, if you have something, you can go ahead.
To O2's point on Cade, we also don't know what Ausar's conditioning was either, right? Like maybe Ausar was gassed and we just didn't know. I'm not saying he was on a minutes restriction, O2, but maybe he just got tired and he needed 2 minutes of rest when we were all freaking out that he gets subbed out with 5 minutes to go in the fourth. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think that's part of it. you just kind of touched on it, Bryce, but Ausar didn't get properly installed like into the offense or anything. He didn't have an offseason. Obviously, he didn't make a season debut until late November. So now they've got an offseason, I think, to iron a lot of that stuff out. And just the main thing that stood out with me with Ausar, just to kind of reiterate what we've talked about, is just he really is special defensively, which we knew. But, again, to see him, the impact he had on Brunson when everybody else was just completely helpless is, that was just something to witness and said a lot about where he is already. And he's got a very unique skill set offensively. I think it can work without the jumper and without the ball handling. But the reality there is that a lot of his responsibility is just going to overlap with the center, right? So I'm curious if they allow Isaiah Stewart to shoot threes a bit more, or exactly how they navigate that aspect of it. But it affirmed a lot of what we knew about Ausar, but also gave me even more confidence, not that I wasn't already, that he has a chance to be special defensively.
Yeah, and just to back up your guys' defensive point, I read these stats in the last podcast, but I'll read it again for you guys. These are Ausar's or Jalen Brunson's numbers throughout the series with Ausar on the floor. In Game 1, 15 points, 6 of 14 shooting, 50 true shooting percentage. Game 2, 12 points, 3 of 9 from the floor, 4 turnovers, 51 true shooting. Game 3, 10 points, 2 of 8 shooting, 47 true shooting. Game 4, 4 of 10, 11 points, 50 true shooting. Game 5, 3 of 14, 11 points, 32 true shooting. In Game 6, yes, he did get them at the end of the game. You will get got sometimes. But in the Game 6 in totality, 16 points, 7 of 18, 44 true shooting. So he held Jalen Brunson throughout the series on less than 50 true shooting percentage on around 11 points per game with him on the floor. When he was off the floor, he just exploded. So Ausar's defense, I thought if there was any questions about, okay, can he be a same level of impactful defender as he was in the regular season in the playoffs, I thought he absolutely answered those. He was fantastic defensively for the Pistons. Bryce, you're muted.
My bad. Sorry.
You're good.
I was typing, so I didn't want everybody to have to listen to that. I was just going to say, I felt like you could see when Ausar left the court or they got a switch or whatever, Brunson's just confidence and mentality shift. Whenever, listen, Dennis Schroeder was a great midseason pickup by Trajan Langdon, and they don't make this run without him. He's just not big enough against somebody like Brunson. And I talked
he's good pressing full court and keeping pressure, but once you get in the half court, he can get to his spot and just elevate over.
Yeah, Brunson was, whenever he bumps Schroeder, he knocks him off, and then Schroeder doesn't have the length. When Brunson bumps Ausar, he still creates separation, but Asar's so athletic and long that he gets back and contests or whatever he needs, or he has his active hands or whatever. And so I just thought you could see with Brunson, there was a different shift in just his confidence. And then that does carry over to when he attacks Ausar, right? Ausar has him frustrated. Now he gets his confidence when Asar's on the bench. And, now he has it whenever Ausar comes back in the game. So I had 3 big things I was looking for was, what did Cade look like? Did he look like one of the best players? He needed to look like one of the 2 best players in the series. And I think he absolutely did that. If you want to argue him versus Brunson, whatever. Could Ausar be the difference maker going up against Brunson that we all thought? And how would Jalen Duren look on the defensive end guarding a stretch big, which we didn't really get to see because of the matchup change, but we still got to see what kind of impact he could have in a playoff series.
Yeah, and just to back up Ausar real quick, give up some more stats on Ausar, then we'll move on to JD and talk about him. Of any player for the Detroit Pistons that played more than one game, because Isaiah Stewart only played 19 minutes, but in the playoffs, he had the largest on-off of anybody. He had plus 11.3 on-off. The defense was 6.2 points better with him on the floor. And the offense was 5.2 points better with him on the floor. That was something I talked about a lot on the podcast throughout the series. It looks wonky. The half-court offense, the Pistons, I don't believe was ever going to be good. The half-court offense isn't built to be great because they don't have enough creators. The offense is better with Ausar on the floor because he helps them generate what is their best offense, which is transition, early, fast break, stuff like that. And I thought Ausar did a much better job in Game 5 and Game 6, just being more aggressive as a driver. He had 22 free throws attempted, I think, in the final 2 games. Just being aggressive and attacking the rim and realizing I'm more athletic than this guy. They're not going to be able to stop me without fouling me. And getting those guys in foul trouble, I thought was huge for him. I hope that's something he continues to do. I think his ball handling has to be the biggest thing he improves on. I've stood for a long time saying that you don't draft him 5 unless you believe in his creation in the future on ball. And if I thought his handle looked better this year, but it was not good enough to trust him in a playoff series. And I think if he improves that ball handling, that's where you really get. I mean, you kind of see what they did with Amen. Even Amen can't shoot, but they still put the ball in his hands because they can trust him as a driver, get to the rim, and it forces the defense to guard someone who can't shoot. He improves that. I think that really is what takes him. I mean, a shot would be great, but I think that's kind of unrealistic at this point. But
we had this debate last week
where
I feel like the shot is more key going forward than
fair enough
the ball handling, just because he already does not have many issues getting to the rim, even with the lack of a jumper. And some of that obviously is because defenders are conceding 2 feet of space. But you just imagine how he could attack a closeout, and like even if he's just like line drives, like he could do some drive and kick stuff. He still give you the transition playmaking. I just think that the 3-ball solves so many problems to where you can just play him and not even have to think about any downsides. Like at most, he's going to be he will never be more than your 5th option on the floor unless he's playing with Isaiah Stewart. So just what Josh Hart does, like if you could just knock down like 34% of your threes, just enough to where the defense has to think about it. Yeah, I think that opens up the rest of his game, and I think that solves all of the lineup issues with him too.
I think in the short term, my thing is I would like to see him go back to like that 6 to 8 foot, 10 foot, just mid-range, jump higher than everybody. I thought his rookie season, that was one of his more impressive shot making, was he would just get to that, because he's going to get to that spot with the way people play him. And so, yeah, I agree, Ku, in terms of like when I watch a Min play compared to a Ausar right now, if I turn on the Rockets game, my biggest differentiator between them is Amin just looks a little tighter with the ball in his hands, his body control to the rim, and those type of things. Amin has a lot more experience, right? Going back to OTE, Amin played more on the ball. Ausar played a little bit more off the ball. So maybe it's going to take him a little while, but you have to hope the foundation is there for him to do it. He showed it in OTE as well. Like a lot of people thought the only reason he wasn't playing on the ball was because he was playing with them in. So I'm with you. And again, I think this would carry over into the offseason conversation in terms of how much you want to take the ball out of Cade's hands, out of J.I.'s hands, and how much you want to take the ball out of Ausar's hands based on potential players you could bring into the roster.
No, yeah, I think the shot would be great. If he added a shot, I think that would be fantastic. I just think that's I was higher on his shot development pre-draft. I thought he had a chance at doing it. I'm less. I've increased in other areas. I've become more hopeful in other areas of his game. I have become much more doubtful now since pre-draft that he will actually develop a legit outside shot. If he does, it would be great. I just don't think it's within. I don't know how realistic it is. Where I think that his handle improving is much more realistic, and I think would have an impact as well within the half court for him. And I also think for him to be. He's probably like second on the team as a passer, as a playmaker, as a processor, all that stuff. And you can't really take advantage of it unless you trust him as a ball handler. And I feel like if he can just develop that, I think that really takes his game to another level. But again, if he developed a 3-point shot, that would be great too. I don't know if he's going to be able to do it, but we'll see.
I mean, O2's putting all this pressure on Fred Vincent, so Fred
Vincent's going to have to be Jesus.
It's not a lot of pressure. This is,
aggregate that man. Aggregate that man. O2 said that Fred Vincent was going to turn Ausar Thompson into Klay Thompson.
And then Ron Howland has to go.
Just get him to like a good batting average, like not asking for much.
I haven't watched baseball in 10 years. What's a good batting average? I don't know.
I tried making a batting average like comparison like 2 podcasts ago, and I had to stop because I didn't know if I was like saying a good one, a bad one, an average one.
It's so different, man. Like that sport is crazy because you fail 7 out of 10 times going to bat, and like batting 300, I think is still really good.
Right? I think that's good. That's why I said batting 300. I'm like, I think that's good, right? I don't know, but
yeah. I'm fascinated by baseball. Like I don't follow it, but I follow the it's like the pitching ninja, and I see just all the different pitches. And
no, the pitches be crazy.
Yeah,
like it blows my mind. Like
I'd be playing MLB The Show.
I'm just gonna throw this ball 102 miles per hour. Like it's like a
and they make it move. I'm like, how do you ever hit this stuff?
How do you make it move?
Supposedly they like can read the ball out of the pitcher's hands. I'm like, what? Like,
no.
These dudes' eyes are different than the normal public's eyes if they're reading that stuff the way they are. So.
No, yeah, I think they say that hitting a baseball is like the hardest thing to do in sports.
It has to be, man. That's ridiculous. So
I will. I will say I hit a baseball at CJ Barrymore's going 65 miles an hour, if that means anything. I was able to get a hit off it. It's a CJ Barrymore's. It's like a amusement, entertainment. Amari, do you know what CJ Barrymore's is?
Yeah, I know what CJ Barrymore's is. I was like,
how would you describe it? Like an entertainment?
I would compare it to like, it's just like, it's
is it
kind of like an arcade environment, but like also for adults. Like, you know, they have
has
like
a bunch of rides,
food and stuff.
Yeah, a bunch of rides, games, and
That's
stuff.
That's such a random name for like an amusement park type place. Like,
no, it's amazing though. It's an amazing place. I have a lot of fun every time I go. But
there's like another chain I'm trying to think of that is similar to that I cannot think of at all. But it's not that different from Chuck E. Cheese. It's just like,
I was gonna say Chuck E. Cheese,
like, but instead of being aimed for 10 years old, it's like, you know, 16 and up.
Baseball flying at you 60 miles per hour at Chuck E. Cheese. Come on,
but like the indoors, like a bunch of like what is it, like games and stuff like Chuck E. Cheese. But then you go outdoors, they have race car drive, or like race, like the little racetrack, whatever. They have like roller coasters, not huge roller, but you get what I'm saying. It's like a bunch of stuff outside. It's a cool event. And inside you can be drinking and stuff, all kinds of cool stuff. But
I got you. We
went off script. Just quickly, I know you guys want to talk about JD before we move on to the offseason. Go ahead and give you guys his quick thoughts. We have about 3 minutes we can give to JD real quick, whichever one of you guys want to go first.
Yeah, just JD, just the way his role expanded as the series went on, and already coming in, it was bigger than I think anybody could have guessed, simply because of Isaiah Stewart going down. But a lot was asked of JD. And, you know, I thought as the series went on, like his level of play began to match the moment where you saw him being a more intimidating presence at the rim. Just like him just being a vertical lob threat that just, I think, solved a lot of issues in the half court where like the Pistons just, depending on how Cade's faring against the blitz, the offense can slow down at times. So that's always a good escape card for them. And then the playmaking being really critical to playing them with Ausar in games 4 through 6. You know, his ability to make the short roll reads, you know, pretty much for the entire reason why that was able to work. There's some numbers I looked up earlier. And some of this is just because he averaged 34 minutes a game because, like, Isaiah Stewart wasn't playing, but he was second on the team. He was third on the team in total assists with 20. I think Dennis Schroeder had one more assist than him, so they were basically tied, and then Cade obviously was first. Then the other one was that he was second behind Cade in like fourth quarter minutes because he was often playing the entire fourth quarter. So yeah, again, like he wasn't the weak link. Like whenever he was on the floor offensively, he was super key to them. Defensively, he held up. Like he single-handedly lifted their rebounding a lot of times because you're going against Karl-Anthony Towns and Mitchell Robinson, who are both great rebounders and both 7 feet tall. And Paul Reed did some great stuff, but like you're giving up a little bit of size, and you know, and that's something that if like was a weakness for this team without Isaiah Stewart, I think we saw it during the season too, was just having the size to handle those types of matchups. So long story short, Jalen Duren had a rise to the occasion moment. I think it was the type of performance that like you see the outlines of what he can be going forward if he could sustain that during the regular season.
Yeah, real quick for me, Ku, I will just leave it with this. Sam Vecini over at Game Theory has not been the biggest Jalen Duren supporter, fan, whatever, has been pretty critical. He thought games 5 and 6 were the best he's ever seen Jalen Duren play. And I think that's a huge compliment to JD in terms of in the most high leverage situations, as you're supposed to grow and improve throughout a season and in a playoffs, he played his best. And so echoing what O2 said, but I think that kind of speaks to how JD played, especially in those final 2 games, and the rim protection especially. I have qualms with some of like the fundamentally type things, but his rim protection grew so much this year. I don't think there's any question about that.
And Ku, to your point earlier too, you talk about how it's not as much about efficiency in the playoffs, but just raw production. And his raw production was just like sky high, like between the rebounding. I think
double
21 points,
12 and 10, 12 and 11 in the playoffs. Yeah,
and then again he had 20 or 21 assists in 6 games, so he was just hyper productive. And he just did so much stuff for them over the course of the series that you see why they had a hard time benching him. Like he was just too critical to them having a functional offense most of the time.
No, yeah, my thoughts on JD was I thought he left it on the floor. Every single time he hit the floor, he gave it literally everything he possibly could. I thought that he had a ceiling to what he could do, and I thought he absolutely hit whatever that ceiling was. I don't think he has his flaws, he has his strengths. Whatever the ceiling was, he hit it. He did absolutely everything he possibly could have done, and I thought he played his ASS off. I thought he literally gave it everything he could every time he touched the floor, and I was happy with how he played. The one area I will say, I've said it on the podcast before, the playmaking Omari I thought was fantastic, especially in the late ends of the series. I thought once Ausar obviously in the dunker spot, he was getting him all the time over and over. But then once the Knicks started to be like, okay, we're taking that away, he started making the cross court skip pass to an open shooter in the short roll. Thought he was great in that. One area that I was a little disappointed in, I was expecting him before the series to put more pressure on Cat as a ball handler and attack him more on the offensive end. And he just didn't really attack Cat, really. Maybe they did have the ball in Cade's hands a ton, so maybe that had a lot to do with it. But I was expecting JD to take some of those DHO, some of those high post reps and really attack Cat and try to get him into foul trouble, and just never really happened. But outside of that, I thought he was absolutely, I thought he gave it everything he had. So I was happy with his performance for sure.
The thing we talked about over on the pod from Trajan's presser that really stood out to us was it was part of a bigger quote. I think he talked about Ausar not having the offseason, and then Trajan specifically said Jalen Duren after the first 25 games of the season and talked about how good he was. And I will tell you, Ku, it gave me a little affirmation because 25 games in the season, I was on the Pistons Pulse
dude, it was looking scary. Let's be real.
I was saying I would bench him. I would put him in street clothes for 2 games and say, watch how hard Isaiah Stewart and Paul Reed play. We're going to make you watch this for 2 games, and then we're going to give you your starting spot back and see if it clicked or whatever. Obviously, that was a little extreme and dramatic, and it didn't take that. But Trajan specifically saying that made me feel like, okay, what we were all seeing as content creators, analysts, whatever, Pistons experts, I think all 3 of us can feel comfortable saying that, was what the team was also seeing from Jalen Duren and should be highlighted as a real growth and improvement from him, especially if we don't go back to that next season, right? If we take where he left this year and build off of games 5 and 6 of the playoffs.
100%. I think the main takeaway that fans should have from these playoffs is that Cade, Duren, Ausar, all 3 of your young guys, were they perfect? No, but I think you should feel really good about all of them moving forward, and they proved in a playoff setting they can compete with a team who is currently up 2-1 on the Boston Celtics. So I think everyone should feel really good about them moving forward. But this is what we'll go into part 2. Let me write it down so I know where to edit it for you guys here. So that is the end of part 1 of our crossover episode with the Pistons Pulse. In the next episode, like I've told you guys, part 2 will be about the offseason, what the Pistons should do, what it could look like. Do they make a trade? Do they extend guys? We'll talk about all that in part 2 of this crossover, but I hope you guys enjoyed part 1. Let me know your thoughts from this episode in the comment section down below or over on Twitter at Ku Khahil. But that's all we got for you guys today. Thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. Free and available on all your podcast platforms. Hit that subscribe button to the YouTube channel if you have not already. And until next time, I will see you guys later. Stay safe out there. And until next time, peace out.